Good evening. I welcome you to the Town Council meeting for the Town of Sunnyvale. Today is November 14th, 2022, and we appreciate you being here tonight and participating in tonight's discussion. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Joe Parrish with Sea Life Church.
Well, thank you so much for just allowing me this opportunity. I wanted to read a verse before we got started. One of my favorite verses from 1 Chronicles chapter 12. It says, "From the sons of Issachar, men who understood the times and knew what the people should do." And just praying that over you guys, that there will be wisdom as you guys make decisions for this town. Let's pray. Lord, we're so grateful for the opportunity you have. Lord, the opportunity to lead, the opportunity to make decisions, the opportunity that you give for us to influence life and culture. And Lord, I pray for those that are here tonight, Lord, that you would continue to give them wisdom, continue to give them opportunities to use the gifts that you've given them to influence others. And Lord, it is beyond us to understand why you would allow us to be a part of it in your infinite wisdom and your sovereignty. But Lord, we thank you for that. Lord, I pray for this town that you would continue to bless it, that you would continue to give opportunities for growth. Lord, that families, young families would come here, that they would find a place that they could call home, a town that they could pour into. Lord, we pray that you would just continue to use this council, Lord, for your purposes, council for the city and for growth. And we just thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Parrish. Please remain standing and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting for Monday, November 14th, 2022 to order. It is now 7:02 p.m. We have all members present except for Mayor Saji George. Our next portion of the agenda is announcements and acknowledgments. This is a time which council and staff may report on items relating to expressions of thanks, congratulations, condolences, information relating to holiday schedules, recognitions, and reminders of upcoming town events. Council, do you have anything to share? Staff?
Mayor Pro Tem Clark, I just want to say, again, I know we had a great Veterans Day event on Friday, so thank you to all of our veterans out there. I also want to say thank you to the town staff and the council members who were able to participate. We know that the weather was a little bit of a setback. We had a flyover scheduled, but because of the inclement weather, that was canceled at the last minute. We brought the event inside, but I want to give Erica and her team a pat on the back for all the work that they did given the conditions, and again, the Veterans Day is a special event, and we appreciate everybody's participation. Having said that, I think we have a few more events coming up that Erica would like to tell you about.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I do want to add on to the Veterans Day. If there are veterans in the town that weren't able to make it, we have plenty of mayor's coins left, and we'll be happy to give those away. And then our other upcoming events, we have the Turkey Trot on Thanksgiving Day. Arrival time is 7 a.m. and the race starts at 7:30. Registration is still open. We've had about 180 people register so far, so it's looking good. And then registration can be done online at townofsunnyvale.org/turkey trot. And then our last event for the calendar year is our Christmas event, and that is on Friday, December 2nd. It starts at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 to 7:30. We'll have Santa, cookies, hot cocoa, crafts, the usual, and then we'll light up the Christmas tree in the town hall.
Excellent. Thank you, Erica. And I just want to, I agree with Town Manager Jones. It was a great event, so thank you everybody that was involved in the Veterans Day ceremony. It was really special. If you do have veterans, if you have family members that are veterans and they could not make it, we can still give you coins to give to them. So please let us know. Moving on to the public comment section of the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a time that you can come forward and speak to the council on any item you would like, other than litigation, personnel matters, or items on the agenda that are already listed. If you'd like to speak to the council at this time, please come on up. If you are here for any items that are already on the agenda, wait for that time, the appropriate time for those items. With no one stepping forward, we're going to move forward. We'd like to now move to the introduction portion of the agenda. We have 3 new employees we would like to introduce. Would Parks Director JD, you're first. Step forward.
That's my bad. I put Parks Director. It's supposed to be Public Works Director.
Public Works, Brian.
Thanks, Mayor. Pro Tem and Council. Whoa. Calm down. All right. I'd like to introduce Bobby. Bobby, if you want to come up there. This is Bobby York. He's our newest maintenance tech here in Public Works. He lives in Forney. He comes to us from a company called Inner City Investments, where he was a maintenance tech for 47 years, where he did plumbing and HVAC and things of that nature. And we're going to see what his skills are and put him to work for Sunnyvale. Come on up here, Bobby. Would you like to say anything? Or?
Welcome. Yep. Next, we have the Director of Administration, Rachel Ramsey. You're up.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. First, I'd like to introduce our new full-time court clerk, Mahani Gallegos. If you want to come up here. Mahani was born in Marshall, Texas, and graduated from Mount Pleasant High School in 2003. She has 2 kids. It's Zelly and Mason, who are here with her tonight. Mahani is bilingual. She can read, write, and translate from English to Spanish, which will be a huge asset for the town and the municipal court. She spent a brief period of her career in the dental and home health care fields before transitioning into county government in November of 2020, where she worked as a deputy clerk for the Camp County Appraisal District for 2 years until she moved to Forney in September of 2022, and we are glad to have her on board. My next one is part-time court clerk Pedro Hasso. Pedro, if you'll come forward. Pedro graduated from Pearsall High School in 1982, and he says, for you country fans, Pearsall is the real home of George Strait. Pedro joined the U.S. Army as a medic, serving at Fort Sam Houston in the emergency room and urology ward. After that, he was stationed in Germany with the 3rd Infantry Division, serving as a field medic. Upon separation from the U.S. Army, he joined law enforcement community as a deputy jailer for Frio County while attending Southwest Junior College to further his education. Pedro also served in the 217th EVAC Hospital Unit, National Guard in San Antonio, Texas. In December of 1989, he joined the Department of Justice as a corrections officer, receiving Officer of the Month and Officer of the Year twice. In 1991, he received orders to report for Desert Storm, and after returning from Desert Storm, he was assigned as an inmate systems officer in administrative capacity for 18 years. Pedro was then promoted to the Grand Prairie Office Complex as a criminal case specialist, designations and computations. He retired in December of 2018 with 32 years of government service. Pedro has been married to his wife Wanda for 32 years. He has 2 children, Mario Hondo Hasso, who is in the United States Air Force, and Sienna Isla Hasso, who is a senior at John Horn High School. And on Pedro's first day here, she was named Homecoming Queen, and we're glad to have him on board.
Thank you for your service, man. Thank you. And your family. Thank you.
We're excited that all the new employees are on the team, so welcome aboard. Now for the consent agenda. Council, we have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. Does anyone have any item that they would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, can I get a motion with respect to the 4 items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda items 5 through 8.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Finch, to approve consent agenda items 5 through 8 as presented. All in favor, signify. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Now for the public hearing portion of the agenda. On to item number 9. Item 9, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 2022-35, granting a special use permit for a self-service car wash on the property zoned retail located generally at 2650 Beltline Road, case 1760-SUP Express Car Wash.
Good evening, Council. The request before you tonight is for the property located at 2650 Beltline Road and is roughly 1.5 acres and it is zoned local retail. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow for a self-service car wash. Surrounding this location is local retail zoning. The applicant is also requesting an alternative to the landscape requirements. 6 of the required 13 shade trees along Beltline Road frontage are shown to be planted interior to the site rather than in the Beltline landscape buffer. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on October 19th, 2022, and voted to recommend approval to the Town Council with a 3-2 vote, subject to the applicant adding shrubs on the northern portion of the property between the vacuum spaces and the property line. Since this meeting, the applicant has added a row of screening shrubs as requested, as well as some trees to help with the buffer between property lines. Staff distributed letters to each property owner within 200 feet of the subject property and received no responses. Staff has received email comments from the agenda postings, and these have been provided to each of you for your consideration in this case. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Philip. At this time, I would like to open up the public hearing. If you'd like to speak on item number 9, please come forward at this time. Also ask you to state your name and address for the record.
Kimberly Horn, I'm the applicant on the property. Our address is 260 East Davis Street, Suite 100, McKinney, Texas. And I am also here with Chase Burns, who is the proposed developer of the property, and Stacy, who is our broker, and Ken Morrison, who represents the seller engineer as well. Be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we respectfully request approval of the item as presented.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from council this time? Okay, we're going to continue with the public hearing, and we may have questions for you afterwards, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark, I have one. Howard Washington III, or Haywood? Haywood Washington III. You can come forward. You don't want to talk? He does not want to talk, but he wants to put on record that he is in opposition.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Stephen Clary. I live at 208 Sunray Lane in Sunnyvale, the neighborhood that is adjacent to this potential property that's going to be built on. And did he say that there was no opposition on October 19th? Did I hear that right? Because I'd put in a petition to Philip, I think it was.
Yes, sir. There was no opposition within the 200-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
There was no return letters within that area.
So what does that mean exactly?
So
Let me understand that.
Well, here, this is just public comments, so
Okay.
this is not a discussion right now.
Okay. So from a public comment perspective, I wanted to find out also that it is 200 feet, or this property is 280 feet, I think it is, from the neighborhood that I live in, right? And I'm trying to figure out why it's 200, if it's outside of 280 feet or 200 feet, why that is in place, and how come we would not have known had the special privileges been asked for from the car wash. Do y'all have an answer for that?
Again, this is just time to speak. It's not a discussion time.
Okay.
So it's a public comment, and
Okay.
it's not a discussion.
So that's a concern that we, the neighborhood that's as closest to the car wash, was not notified only because we were outside of that 200 feet buffer, right? And that's a concern. We, as the closest neighborhood next to this potential development, feel that there's a criminal aspect to the car wash that could be brought in that could bring a criminal element, not of the car wash itself, right? And so that is of concern to our neighborhood and what it might bring to the children that are playing in our neighborhood, the families that are coming to our neighborhood, and we happen to be the closest, again, neighborhood to that particular development, right? We don't know what the barriers look like in totality. We don't know if there's gonna be ultimately a wall there. We hear there's gonna be more development in that particular area. But again, we're right there. We're the closest neighborhood of anybody to this particular development area. And it's a big concern for us that this is going to be coming in, and what noise, what criminal element could bring to it. What barriers do we have to keep the wrong element out of our neighborhood, right? And I hope that if there's anything that I need to ask or elaborate on, please let me know. The group's location, I don't know where the other group's locations are, the car washes locations. That's also something else that would be important to see how big this group is and what they're going to be bringing in and how those other groups look. Is it an eyesore type development that they're going to be building? How's that going to affect, again, our neighborhood? Ultimately, how's it going to affect our mortgages, the values of our homes that we've built and lived in for as long as we have, right? As far as the 1,000-foot, again, that is really critical to us because we do want to be notified of other institutions that are going to come into our neighborhood. That is very, very critical. Is it possible, since there's only one entrance to this car wash that we've heard about, what possible problems would happen, if you had a line of cars out on Beltline? How's that gonna, hurt things as far as the establishment goes? And our main entrance to our neighborhood is right next to where the ultimate development's going to be in that commercial area. And what can we do to possibly put some type of barrier in, be it a gate, make it not a gated community, but there are automatic gates that you can install that will open up, when someone approaches it. It doesn't have to have a key code or anything like that, but it keeps the element from coming into our neighborhood and allows that element to pass by the neighborhood thinking it is a gated type community. So those are all things that I really want the council to take into consideration, take in what one of the oldest neighborhoods in Sunnyvale, is having to endure with this new development, and want to make sure it just doesn't encroach upon a neighborhood that is well established and is well respected, and we're a part of the community, right? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, also, we're going to have a 3-minute time rule for speaking. Okay, that was forgot to mention that before. So I did not want to cut you off, Steve. Yes, sir. Please state your name and the address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Ben Munyon. I live at 212 Sunray Lane, in that same neighborhood. So, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you for your time. I'll try to be very brief. First of all, I've reviewed the plans. I haven't seen the updated plans, but I will say I share the concerns Steve had about traffic coming through the alley in the neighborhood. I think a 6-foot wall or some kind of permanent structure would help neighbors' concerns more than just shrubs. We initially thought this was a 24-hour development, so we thought people would be coming all hours of the night. Apparently now it's closes at 8 o'clock, so it's not that case. It looks like a pretty car wash. It looks like the one that I see, the Caliber, used to be Q Car Wash by Lowe's. It looks like only red instead of blue. I just wanted to highlight to the council, my main concern is that rezoning this to a car wash is going to make this a single-use development where it's only going to be a car wash. Car washes don't get rezoned and turned into restaurants or retail or other things. It's going to be a car wash forever. My understanding from reading a lot about the car wash industry, and my experience is, and Chase can confirm to us, there's generally a 3-mile radius rule is typically used in car wash developments where you don't want to build a new car wash within 3 miles of another one. I looked on Google Maps, finding the nearest car washes to that location on Beltline. There are 9 car washes. I could list them for you if you want, but I got 3 minutes. I can give you you've probably seen them all. The problem is that when you have so many car washes next to each other, they drive each other in a race to the bottom, drive each other out of business, and then one gets taken over out of bankruptcy and charges very low rates for their car wash, which undercuts the competition and so forth. So does the city of Sunnyvale want to be wading into this kind of a mess? That is, of course, I leave to you, but I wanted to highlight that is, for me, a concern as a neighbor. Now, I don't say Chase is going to get out of business, but it is a concern that I share. Also, car washes right now are a private equity industry fad. You've probably seen roll-ups, as they're called, for veterinary offices, dentist offices, auto repair shops, and car washes. That's been an investment fad for the last 2 years, and my personal opinion is it's a dying fad. And so the money is leaving the industry. People are kind of doing the last deals they can. It seems to me like a hasty deal. With interest rates rising in the markets generally, it seems like yes, thank you, I'll hurry up. It seems like You know, are we building kind of like a Beanie Baby shop, you know, in 2000? Car washes are great, but how many car washes do we need, and is the money going to kind of leave this industry? We shouldn't be the ones holding the bag. That's my main concerns, I would say. Lastly, you know, it brings traffic, it doesn't bring jobs. So this is going to be a high-tech car wash with a lot of capital investment, but not a lot of humans working there. So no jobs for our residents, you know, hired folks from McKinney to do the plans and such. No offense to McKinney, but so do we just want a big piece of equipment running a car wash here instead of the rest of what this land was zoned for, which was shops, medical offices, et cetera, that bring people working and commuting into Sunnyvale? To me, I would rather preserve it as that zoning rather than a car wash for that potential in the future as we grow as a city. But, you know, I leave it in your hands, so I'll stop. I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, please set your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Chase Burns, 1225 Mercedes-Benz Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm speaking on behalf of the car wash. And Ben, good job research. That's a lot of accurate information. But what we're going to build in Sunnyvale is probably a car wash that a lot of you have not ever seen before. Especially the type of equipment that we use inside the wash. This is all state-of-the-art equipment. This is the most high-end you could possibly get inside the industry. A lot of times when I go to these meetings, I'll actually bring a flip phone with me and hold it next to my iPhone. Just in the same period that your flip phone has became the iPhone, the car wash industry has moved similarly in technology. And what we're offering, or what we're going to build here, is going to have is basically the latest and greatest iPhone of the industry. It's something really special that has been worked on for the last 50 years to get to this model. And you know, any town that you know, that Tommy's Express comes into, I feel like it's always accepted from the community as something like really neat and something like they can kind of brag to everybody else about and say, look what we have. That's been the sentiment that I've heard. And I may be speaking biasly, but I think that a car wash is just not a car wash. I mean, now there's actually differences in operations and equipment and how they're ran that can actually that impacts the customer experience to a point where you can actually tell the difference. This is not just something that is you look at and say it's just a car wash. There's definitely a difference here. And I think it's going to be a huge impact for the community. And in fact, you know, we have 14 locations. We do over 30 fundraisers a year for the local communities, and we plan on being, you know, a big part of this community as well. And you know, we look forward to jumping right in and getting to know everybody and being a positive piece of this community. As far as the criminal aspect goes, there's no evidence to suggest that this car wash is going to bring more criminal activity. In fact, we have 36 surveillance cameras. In the instance that somebody were to walk on our property, commit a crime, we're going to have them. We're more than happy to work with police officers or anybody else and you know, figure out, you know, who did what. I think that I don't see it bringing any more, you know, criminal aspect to it. So, any questions? No.
Thank you, Chase. Hey, please set your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Doug Patterson, 205 Sunray Lane, Sunnyvale, Texas. My wife and I live at 205 Sunray, which borders the east 13-acre property of that track, which we understand that the car wash is proposed to go in the northwestern sector. Again, from an opinion standpoint, we feel like it's maybe not the best use of the piece of property in regards to that, but that's strictly an opinion process that I'd like to state. Especially in the light that there's an existing car wash that's 2,500 linear feet from the south property line. I mean, I rolled it off Sunday when this issue came to my attention. Our concerns would be related to whatever wall screening or issues that may be required in regards to the track as a whole. And I don't know how that applies to the 1.5 acre portion, and I don't know if that's going to be platted out or how that's going to be segregated as a part of that. But then we do have a concern on the eastern half of the property, or the property that's east of the proposed car wash section, between that east property line and the residential property line, or the alleyway right away at that point. Other concerns would be any type of noise generated from any air drying equipment that's typical from what I've seen. Now, there may be some revisions to that the gentleman may need to address. I know there's vacuum stations, so there's noise generated from that. Possible light spillage or spillover from site lighting. Extended hours of operation, that wasn't addressed in regards to, is this a specific hour operation? Is this a 24-hour car wash, etc.? And, you know, which again lends to the potential of any loitering of vehicles should it be open for a 24-hour item. And I don't know how that's going to be secured at this point. So our request would be for your consideration in regards to the neighborhood that's adjacent to that, specifically the 5 or 6 neighbors that do border that 13-acre track. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Would anybody else like to speak on item number 9? Please state your name and
My name
address.
is Francisco Rodriguez. I live at 206 Sunray Lane, and my neighbors pretty much said everything that I was going to say anyway, but I think if you guys are going to build a fancy, nice car wash, maybe it needs to be built next to a freeway, away from a peaceful, nice neighborhood that we've all lived in and raised some of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Okay, anybody else?
My name is Ken Morrison. I reside at 4630 O'Connor Court in Irving, Texas, 75062.
Are you the applicant, sir? Are you the applicant?
Yeah, I represent the
Okay.
seller of the property.
Right. Okay.
And
So,
go ahead.
go.
They've owned this property, the joint ventures owned
Yeah.
this property since 1970.
Well, here, let's, so right now we want to have a public session. And then, well, I was going to say, we'd like to probably talk to the applicant afterwards. So I'd say, let's finish the public session, and then we'll.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so hang on one second, okay?
Sure.
Okay, is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Okay, with no one else coming forward, we'll close the public hearing. And now we'd like to hear from the applicant.
I'll restate my name. It's Ken Morrison, 4630 O'Connor Court, Irving, Texas, 75062. I'm a consulting engineer, but I'm here to represent the venture that's selling the property. And like I said, the venture that owns the property has owned this property since 1973. As a matter of fact, it was part of a much larger tract that was, it actually included the single family that's to the east. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, we've developed a number of different concept plans. One of the more recent ones I have here, if you'd like to see it. And it shows a mix of different retail uses, all the way from senior living to medical office to restaurants to convenience store. But it's just simply a concept plan, things that are allowed. And the only actual real interest that we've had from the marketing that we've done has been with medical office and senior living and one C-store developer. And I'd be more than happy to answer questions, or I'll hand out these conceptual plans if you'd like to see them.
Council, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, if you don't mind. Thank you for coming tonight, appreciate that.
Sure.
Could we address more details for the residents? They had some questions that weren't addressed in y'all's opening statements. Let me just throw these at you. First of all, the hours of operation.
So the hours of operation of this facility are about 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. It is not a 24-hour facility. It's a tunnel car wash where people go through pay lanes, exit through the tunnel, and then go into a dryer space where you can vacuum out your vehicle.
Are those hours, well, that is really loud. Are those hours flexible based on the needs of the community from 7:30 in the morning? Could it open later?
Yes, they can be flexible.
Next question I have for you. Will there be attendance there, or will it be totally unattended?
Yes, there will be. And Chase, if you can come back up, you can talk about the number of employees that it employs.
Yes, we employ between 10 and 15 full-time employees, and there will be attendance there for all operating hours. And then probably around 30 minutes before we open, 30 minutes after we close.
Okay, with regards to lighting, yeah, I actually kind of side with them on lighting, but that's resolvable by directional LEDs. So I'm assuming, since you didn't mention that, though, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we're going to have a full study on the light pollution caused, and we're going to use. We went through this in the last car wash we built. We use LED lights that are, they have an angle and they shut off. Like basically, like there's zero light pollution, unless you're looking directly at it, obviously.
So let me ask you this:
I believe the code doesn't allow for spillover over the property line as well.
That's right. So let me ask you this: light's pretty subjective. It's kind of like noise from an airplane. But if you were to install these lights, if it were to pass tonight and the lights were installed, but the residents said, hey, this is still an impact to us, would you be agreeable to go back and continue to readjust those lights until they were no longer an issue for the residents?
Absolutely.
Another question for screening. I know that there's been some changes to the screening because we've seen that, but could you explain so the residents behind you could hear what your updated screening is to the property behind you?
I can actually address that. So our property's not adjacent to the neighborhood. 13 acres is. We're actually 280 feet west of that. Between P&Z and Council, we've since then added rows of trees and shrubs along the eastern property of the car wash property to kind of soften that edge and soften that view from the neighboring property. Development of the 13 acres, and I don't know what that remainder looks like, they'll likely, and Philip, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they'll likely have to provide some level of screen wall at that time.
Yes, so in between residential and non-residential, there will be a requirement of I believe it's a 6-foot masonry wall. I'd have to go back and check, but I believe that is what is required. And that's along the property line to be built by the developer.
And to be clear, that's a separately platted lot. This lot's already been platted, and it's already a different, it's set to be a different ownership, but.
Yeah, I get that. I don't think our residents heard that before when y'all started speaking, so I wanted that to be back available for them to hear that. My last question, Mayor Pro Tem Clark, is for traffic. Have you addressed the traffic? What's the traffic study look like, and what are the provisions for spillover onto Beltline if there was spillover?
Actually, for Beltline, we've proposed a left turn lane, so that's part of our project as well, to build a left turn lane into the site. So there's not currently one at the median opening that exists. There's plans for a continuation of the drive to the south. There's a common access drive on the south side of our property where vehicles can make a turnaround if they need to. There's no proposed traffic that cuts through to the residential neighborhood at all. So we're isolated completely from that residential development.
So on the turn lane, are you saying that, if I heard that correct, the 3 lanes on Beltline, you would add an additional lane on that property so there'd be a standalone turn lane into the car wash?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any further questions for the applicants? Councilman Freeman?
Quick question.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark. So one thing that wasn't addressed, we heard some things about noise and with the blowers. I mean, I visit these things, so I know they are noisy. And the vacuum is not necessarily the individual car vacuums, but you have a huge vacuum unit that will be placed somewhere on that property that will create substantial noise. So can you talk to us about that, about noise pollution and
Yes.
possible impact?
So the exit of the tunnel where the dryers are is going to be facing or closest to the road. So most of that noise will be headed out towards Beltline. And we actually have a tunnel that's closer to a neighborhood, a lot closer actually. And we still don't get any noise complaints. As far as the vacuums go, we use a system where the only vacuum, the only vacuums that are running are the ones that are actually being used. So each individual vacuum has its own producer with an exhaust and a noise dampening exhaust unit. So basically, you don't have this all day long running system. They're only running when they're being used, and then only the ones being used are going to be producing noise. So there's never a moment where, you know, you have this huge producer that's making, you know, a bunch of noise. Ours are probably the most quiet in the industry.
Any further questions? Councilmember Finch? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming and speaking. Okay, council. So discussion, any questions, comments, thoughts?
All right, I'll go ahead and throw this out there. There's a reason why this was not allowed to begin with and why it's coming up for SUP. Car washes don't fit in that area. This is an entrance into Sunnyvale for a lot of people. There's 2 car washes that are in close proximity to this. It doesn't add anything unique to the town, and at the end of the day, it does not fit in that neighborhood. So, noise pollution, all of the other things that have been brought up, those are great. I'm glad you addressed those. There's a reason why there was an SUP placed in that area. There's a reason why car washes were not automatically allowed in that area, and it's because they just don't fit. And there's nothing with this car wash that I think changes my thoughts on that.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to those comments. You know, regardless if it passes or fails, SUP was so the council gets a chance to review the product before it's actually enacted. And I believe there's some other uses that could be put on that property, and even between the car wash and the residence, it's 280 feet, so there could be additional structures, buildings, facilities that could be built behind the car wash if it were passed, and that resident. Maybe it would be a good idea for Philip to expound on some of those other potential uses.
So
by right, I'm sorry, by right. Things that we don't have to vote on, that PZ doesn't have to vote on, they can just file and put in there if you don't mind.
So allowed by right within the local retail zoning includes anywhere from, you know, assisted living nursing homes, antique shops, automobile parts store, a bakery, bank or financial institution, barber, beauty shop, caterer, wedding service, community center, dance, music, martial arts, drama studio, equipment repair shop, florist, furniture sales, gyms or grocery store, a hardware store, laundry, dry cleaning pickup, just to name a few.
All right, and they've marketed all of those uses on that property for years, as they just said, and none of them have come in. So those are potential uses, and they absolutely could, because it is zoned retail, and that is one of those things when you move into a neighborhood, and I know that, you know, I grew up in that neighborhood, I know it well. It's zoned retail, you think, oh, well, it's zoned retail, but nothing's coming in. Something absolutely can come in. Any of those things that he just mentioned, if they come in and they build the code, they can come in and we can't stop them. There are certain things that are excluded from that list, and that is so that we get a chance to look at the plans to see if it changes our mind as a town as to what we think fits. And like I said, I don't believe it does.
Philip, could Discount Tower be built between the back of that car wash and up against the property of the residents by right?
So after looking at it further, the automobile parts store new only, I started looking into it a little bit further and farther down the list here. There's automobile service garage, which I think would fall underneath, would be discount tire in that use. But there could be a O'Reilly's or something similar that could sell tires there, but I don't think there would be the installation of tires.
So if anything, anything were to be built in that piece of property, how close could that property be built to the back of the current residence? What's the distance between, let's say, their fence and where the end of a new property could come? It really doesn't matter what that property is. I just want to know what the buffer is between their existing property fence line and the back of a new structure.
I'm trying to think what the setback would be off the top of my head. I do not know. I would have to check into that a little bit further. There is going to be a 20-foot landscape buffer between the back of that residentially zoned property to this local retail zone property, as there is for any property between residential and your non-residential. And that'll have, I believe it's shade trees at 40 feet on center is required as well within that landscape buffer.
I've asked staff to bring up the conceptual drawings. I just wanted to take a look at that. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that, because we had some comments about using the alleyway, and I don't see any way that could be used. Could you go on down to the actual conceptual drawing of the facility? I think go one more, because I think there's a, like I was looking at the vehicle traffic pattern, if it showed it on there. I don't have a problem if you don't, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mind if I mention one thing about, it's about the building materials?
Certainly.
So I went by Quick Trip on the way here. I saw their building materials. I know that one of you guys said that they use building materials to fit the look and the feel of Sunnyvale. We would be more than happy to use the same type of building materials to fit the look and the feel of the Sunnyvale. We've done it in the past, and I think it comes out looking great. And we have some renderings that are some of those off. It's not always just these red metal panels. We can use brick, different types of masonry. So that's not an issue at all.
Thank you.
How's blue and gold?
So, council, any more comments, discussions, questions? If there's no further discussion, can I call for a motion? Close, public hearing is closed.
Mayor, Pro Tem, Attorney, I'm kind of interested to see what the residents might say after they've expounded on additional things that they didn't know. Can we visit that before?
You can reopen the public hearing if you choose. It's not required by state law. State law requires that you have a public hearing. But it's up to the council.
Council, are you interested in having more discussion?
I'd like to hear the public hearing. I'd like to
Okay.
hear more comments.
Let's open the public hearing back up. 3 minutes each. Please restate your name and address once you come back up.
I don't know where we can bring that. Stephen Clary, 208 Sunray Lane, Sunnyvale, Texas. Yeah, is there any way we can bring the plat part back up? Is that possible? I mean, hold it right there. So you see where his vacuums are? Those vacuums are 280 feet from the alleyway or the residential area, if I understand that correctly. And the noise that are gonna be coming from that, I get where the drying piece is coming out on the, spilling out onto Beltline, but this is gonna be an ongoing thing as far as vacuuming up until 8 o'clock at nighttime, or I don't know what time he's gonna start in the morning. That's number one. The other thing is, I get, we wanna bring in new business in Sunnyvale, right? It's gonna help with a whole lot of different things, but a car wash just isn't one of those things, and it's not a good thing next to our neighborhood. It's something that we feel is gonna devalue our properties, right? It's gonna bring in the wrong element. We feel we have children in this development, and it's just not something that fits. Nothing against you guys at all.
We can't hear you.
Again, it's nothing against you guys at all. We understand the business growth. We want the right property built here. Our vision is a business park of some sort, or a medical center of some sort, but not a car wash. That's just, we don't feel that's going to fit in with what we're trying to obtain as a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come back up for the public hearing part 2?
Yes, Ben Munyon, 212 Sunray Lane. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you for indulging us for a second round. I wanted to address a couple of things that I heard that I thought were bearing on. One was, yes, this is a very high technology new piece of capital equipment with few attendants, potentially 10 or 15. That also means a lot of capital maintenance ongoing. Again, my concern with 9 different, and again, I can read them for you, 9 different car washes within a 3-mile radius, I'm racing to the bottom, does not leave a lot of ongoing income for ongoing maintenance of these high capital property in the long run, as I see it, if this were the case. Now, I hope I'm wrong. Second thing I had a concern about was, again, ongoing. I tried to find the buyer of the property before, and it only found out tonight that Bruce Harbor, the seller, had broke his hip, and that's why I couldn't contact him. But one thing I would like to know is what is the state of ongoing reviews of these car washes? Because what I see with a lot of Tommy's Express car washes, so I knew the franchise Tommy's Express, if you look at their Google Maps reviews of these places, great reviews in the first 3-4 months of these places, and then what are the reviews come in 4, 5, 6, 8 months afterwards? It's 1-star reviews. I can't undo my membership because they won't call, I won't answer the phone when I try to undo my membership. All these new car washes are all about having an ongoing membership. So what are the Google reviews of Chase's franchises he owns in Louisiana and other places look like? And do we have the same pattern of great first few months and then a decline? And lastly, to the alternative neighbors thing. I see a lot of car washes neighboring gas stations or auto repair shops. I don't see a lot of car washes next to medical facilities or grocery stores or other things that I personally would want. So as a selfish community member, I would love to have a Trader Joe's or a dance hall or something, nearby, or a small retail development or a nursing home, something like that. I don't want to have a discount tire and a car wash next to each other. But again, if this is approved, I welcome them in the community, and sure I'll try it out something. But I won't get a membership because I know it's so hard to cancel with a lot of their franchise. But thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further comments? Please restate your name and address for the record.
Doug Patterson, 205 Sunray Lane, Sunnyvale. Council, based on the potential approval of this SUP, I would express my future concern in regards to the piece of property that's going to be left up in the northeast corner of the track in regards to the potential of what I've heard as far as trying to market this piece of property, sell this 13-acre piece of property and develop it. What's going to happen if you guys approve this SUP with the potential of trying to develop the rest of the 280 feet of that piece of track in that northeast corner? I sure wouldn't want to try to put a doctor's office or market a doctor's office adjacent to or behind a car wash at this point. So I would ask the consideration of that, should this thing be passed, or the consideration for the potential use in the future of the whole tract piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any further speakers? Round two. Please state your name and number.
I'm Steve Houston. I'm at 209 Sunray Lane. I've been there since 1988. My concern is the traffic, the noise, the water usage, although these things are supposed to recycle 80% of the water and use it as gray water. That never happens with oil being dumped in it and everything else. So you have to replenish the water at a certain rate. My big concern is the homeless people that's going to move into the back of that between my property and the car wash. It's nice that you're going to put up bushes and trees. I'm sure the homeless people are going to love Little Shelter. So it's going to bring in that element. Yeah, it's going to bring in crime. Homeless people do commit crimes, petty thieves. I've had one truck stolen out of the driveway. I've had one attempted at it. And that's with nothing back there. So, yeah, that's my concern. Mine backs up this thing. So, I'd just like to know who's going to handle the homeless element, because don't leave it up to me. You don't want that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? Okay, with that, we will up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ray Rollins, 103 Sunbird. My property is right behind all this, and I can see the noise those vacuums going all day long in the backyard would just be very disturbing. Kind of shatter the peace of the place. That would be my complaint. That's it.
Thank you, sir. With no one else coming forward, I'll call the public hearing part 2 closed. Councilmember, further discussions, comments, or questions?
Yeah, I did want to throw one other thing on top of Mr. Patterson's comments. If we do approve this and it is there, what else can go there? Right now we have 13 acres of land that could be used for retail. If you put that there, what else can go there? My guess is it's not going to be anything that's cohesive. It's not going to be anything that looks like it all belongs together. It's all going to be done piece by piece by piece, which again does not add anything unique to the town that we live in, and it's going to look exactly like what goes from Trip Road to 80, pretty much from Beltline on. I mean, it literally is just something was built here, then something else was built here. It's not cohesive. It doesn't look together. And again, I don't think it adds anything to our town.
Any further comments? Mark?
I've been kind of on the fence on this, but, as Member Freeman and some of the others have said, my concern is we don't see a full conceptual development plan for the total piece of property. Actually, by carving out this corner the way it is, we are creating what we don't allow, and that's flag lots. Somewhat. There may be some easement access coming in from the north up against the salons. And I understand the salons people don't have objection to this. I think they're just equally as neutral to it as I was coming into the meeting tonight. I've talked to a few residents. I've had some conversation via email with the applicant. They've met the requirements, or I shouldn't say requirement, but some of the thoughts that I projected to them. But that doesn't mean it's a done deal. I have to agree. This isn't the fit. Now, this council gets tired of me saying this. Some have lived here for 30 years. We've lived here for 43. I remember when there were cows running around in that field. Now, it just so happens I only grew up 5 miles down Interstate 30 in Mesquite. I graduated from Mesquite, and I won't tell you when because it was so long ago the numbers don't really exist. I've lived in this area a long time, and some of you may know I sat on P&Z for a while before I got onto council, and it's not about saying no. It's about saying yes to the right things. I don't think this is the right thing for that piece of property. It may be right in another area of Sunnyvale. I don't think it's right for this piece of property. And I'm not going to use the gateway to our property because this really isn't the gateway. Or I'm not going to really use it as this is the gateway to the town because it's not. Gateway to the town is Collins and 80. That's what we are. That's what all of our plans that we've worked on, our comp plan, all the plans that we've put together have kind of driven the core of the town to. If this were the right fit, I'd be all over it. But I don't think it is. And that's the reason why we have SCPs, is so that we can look at those things that might not be quite the fit, but could work. But there's so many pieces of this that just don't work in my mind. I appreciate the fact that there's noise attenuation on the vacuums, but whatever noise level attenuation that you're going to be able to achieve, sadly enough, the 6-foot masonry wall that is a requirement between a commercial neighborhood and a residential neighborhood isn't going to help when you're 280 feet away. The noise is going to be there. It helps when you're closer to it. For instance, the lot that's not being used, or the lot that is behind to the east of where this facility is looking at going. It would probably help some of that. The attenuation would probably help some of that, or the wall would probably help in some of that attenuation. And I appreciate the developer, the applicant, has worked hard to try to increase the number of the amount of vegetation that would tend to help muffle, whatever levels of noise would come through. But again, it's not the right fit, and it's not because of the noise. And it's just because we don't know what the total tract is going to look like. And I would love to see some developmental concepts. I understand the engineer who's representing the property has got some concepts, some conceptual plans. If we saw how this fit into that, it would be easier to understand. And I understand you don't have to provide that to us because you're only looking at this corner piece of property. But I think we have the responsibility, at least I feel like I have the responsibility to look at this as the whole piece of property and what's going to happen with it, as we have done on some other pieces of property that are in town. Now, across Beltline, there are a bunch of sliced up pieces of property, but all that stuff is from years and years and years ago. And, it's the town didn't, watch itself very closely back at that time. So that all being said, and let me make one final comment. The concern that the residents have had about not being notified. The state law, and the town attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but the state law is 200 feet away. So it just so happens you're further than 200 feet away. There are 4 or 5 people across Beltline that are within that 200, and they're commercial properties. So, if we got any of those replies back, and then the paperwork that I've got, both in what we were provided and what's here on the desk tonight, we haven't got any response back from any of those commercial property owners to be able to know whether or not they're for it or not. And sadly, that's the way it is. Now, at one time, we did, as a town, we took the initiative to go 400 feet, and that would have covered it. But I think in this particular situation, where we have the potential for the noise that we could have, even though you've got the blowers that are facing Beltline, and we can appreciate that. but you still have the vacuums. And there's still gonna be some amount of noise that's gonna be coming across. If you can overhear it with all the northbound traffic going up and down Beltline coming out of Mesquite to begin with. Which makes me wanna address another point. I'm sure the car wash would hope that all that northbound traffic would whip right into that car wash as they're on their way to work, or the southbound traffic would whip in on because you're gonna be busy. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I think the traffic impact, personally, I think the traffic impact, you're not gonna know what traffic impact the car wash represents, because there's already so much traffic going up and down Beltline. And with that, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Councilmember Egan. Any further comment?
Yeah, I got a comment. So, this being the first development on the property, right, it's going to set the tone for what the rest of the property will be developed as, right? So, it sounds like people have concerns about Discount Tire or auto shops or something else showing up. Well, if the first thing we put on the property is a car service company, it kind of predicts that the rest of it will probably be car services, right? So, are we kind of like pushing in that direction by allowing this? Is that what we want? Is that the best use of the property? I don't really think so.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, I would say this, that my first look at the car wash was red. It was not enticing to me to build that there, but that withstanding, I think the applicants answered all the questions that the residents brought of concern, and they've addressed them. I will caution our residents on this. It's easy to say not in my backyard, because most of the people I've talked to weren't opposed to it. And sometimes it's better to dance with the devil you know than what you don't know. So I just caution you on that, because the next thing may be built there that you don't really want. That's it. Thank you.
Council, any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I will again ask for a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to deny the SUP application for the property at, excuse me for a second, 2650 Beltline.
Motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Egan, seconded by Councilmember Freeman. To deny the motion, does...
To deny the application, not the motion.
To deny the application.
Yes.
Does everyone understand the motion, including myself? I do now. Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? Motion passes. The motion to deny passes 6-0. Yes. Moving on to the discussion and action items. Item 10. Discuss, consider, and act upon Resolution 2022-24 allowing for the filing of an application for a planned development, PD, of less than 10 acres for lots 1 through 5 for Shalem Park development located in the west side of the Beltline Road, roughly 770 feet south of intersection of Town East Boulevard and Beltline Road. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our town planner, Philip.
Yes, Council. The request before you tonight is for a resolution to allow for the application of a planned development for a property under 10 acres in size. The applicant is wanting to request the rights to submit an application for their property. It's lots 1 through 5 of the Shayland Park development on the west side of Beltline Road, roughly 770 feet south of the intersection at Town East and Beltline. If y'all have any further questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. This time, I'd like to open up the floor to public comments. If you would like to speak on item number 10, please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address, and you will be limited to 3 minutes for the public comment section. With no one coming forward, I'd close the floor to the public.
Stephen Clary, 208 Sunray Lane, Sunnyvale, Texas. The only concern with that particular development is, again, the directional lighting piece. Our neighborhood does or could be affected by that. We watch the fireworks shows all the time at Sunnyvale First Baptist. And this property is literally just on the same border as that property, if I'm correct. Is that right? Okay. Say again. Across, okay. So again, we understand that there is good directional lighting from that aspect, a little bit of concern from that, a little bit of concern from the noise as well, as it does is a particular area that could spill over noise-wise onto the property with this particular development and use of it. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further public comments? With no one else coming forward, we'll close the floor of public comments. Is the applicant?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay.
Rachel, can you pull up that site plan again? Can we, as he talks, can you pull up that site?
Good evening. Bill Thomas, Engineering Concepts and Design. I believe all of you were here before, we came forward a little over a year, I think it was, Philip, and tried to get this development restarted. And it's a unique situation, as y'all know, without regurgitating the whole staff background information. It is currently platted, and the infrastructure is all installed for this development. The owner has wanted to get development started and get something going out there. So, in trying to figure out a way to get this done, it has been suggested that we could go into a PD, would give the town more control over what exactly is built out there, the way the buildings look, and it would give us the opportunity to make what we're somewhat stuck with work without having, tiny buildings and the things that we were having a problem with before. If there's any questions about that, I've also got Mr. Ted Lyon, who is one of the builders out there, representing the owner also, and he may be able to help answer some of those questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Would Mayor Pro Tem, I don't feel that the explanation is broad enough. I think that the applicant can broaden that as to why. I've been involved with it probably from the day one
Yes, sir.
of it. Why a PD is being asked for, relevant to smaller buildings, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And this is just a process that helps you kind of get over some of those hurdles.
Yes. The main issues that we had, the new, after this property was platted and the infrastructure was installed, a new UDO was passed that required setbacks and setbacks from side building lines, and required that the town consider the fire lane that's put in out there as a front street, basically. And we're required to set back, I believe it was 50 feet from that, or 30 or 50, one or the other.
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head.
But it substantially cut into the areas where we could construct buildings. And the idea is to use, as you can see, somewhat the way it's laid out with the plat, but add some, wider, more enhanced landscaping up front to make up for some of the lost side setbacks and side landscape buffers where we would have to put parking in order to park out the amount of usable land that's left and still have reasonable amounts of building size, building envelope.
Thank you. Can you restate your name and address for the record?
Bill Thomas, Engineering Concepts and Design at 201 Winco Circle in Wiley.
Thank you. And do we have further questions for the applicant?
I would like to just clarify for my purposes. I think part of when you were talking about the fire lane issue, what you're saying is the one entrance driveway that you've got is not adequate enough under our current UDO, which requires two means of ingress egress. Is that kind of what's coming into play here?
No, that wasn't so much the issue as there is a second point of access plan. Actually, there was not a second point of access plan for that. That was the only one. The new UDO required that we have a front setback that would equal the same front setback as if it were a public thoroughfare, public roadway, applied to the fire lane. That was the problem with trying to keep the infrastructure in the fire lane that we have there. By the time we had those setbacks, the building envelopes became very small.
And it was small, right, right.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I would just remind you that this is not discussing the merits of the case. This is just giving the property owner permission to file an application for Planned Development District zoning. So whatever is going to be proposed would come to you through that process.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Council, any further questions, comments, or discussion?
I have no problem allowing the applicant to be able to come back to us with a plan, a TD. I think it's reasonable. That doesn't mean we might have some discussion after the PD submitted, but we still have further direction on that.
Right, and I'll just add, I was very pleased with how the applicant's been working with the town through this this issue. So, yep. So, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to call for a motion.
Motion to approve. Item 10.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldridge, seconded by Councilmember Finch for item number 10. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? Item number 10 passes 6-0. On to item number 11. Item 11, discuss, consider, and act upon a proposed amendment number 2 to the Collins Road Phase 2 design contract between the town of Sunnyvale and Kimley Horn Associates Incorporated, authorizing the town manager to execute the contract in amount not to exceed $283,800. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the town's engineer, Lyle Jenkins.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Yes, as you mentioned, the town has a current contract with Kimley Horn Incorporated for engineering design services for Collins Road. And we had previously approved amendment number 1 sometime back. This current requested amendment covers a number of things. Primarily, it is landscaping design for both the Phase 2 section of Collins Road as well as the existing Phase 1 section and the section of Collins Road south of Highway 80 down to the Mesquite city limit. It also includes traffic modeling based on data that Kimley Horn had previously collected, and preparation of concepts visualizations for our use in public presentations for various proposed cross sections of the roadway that could be used for outreach initiatives to the town and to the public as the project moves forward. That having been said, I believe we have a representative here from Kimley Horn that is also familiar with the project. He's also available to answer any questions. And with that, Any questions y'all might have? Thank you.
Council, any questions? Can you state your name and address for the record?
Ryan Delmont, Kimley Horn, 2201 West Royal Lane, Suite 275, Irving.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We may call you back up, but thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to public comments. If you would like to speak on item number 11, please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll be limited to 3 minutes. With no one coming forward, I'd like to close the floor to public comments. Council, do you have any questions, comments, or discussions? If there's no further discussions, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve, item 11.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldridge, seconded by Councilmember Allen to approve motion number 11. Does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, please vote. If those are in favor, please raise your hand, signify. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item 12. Discuss, consider, and act upon the proposal by KSA Engineers for a resurfacing, for subsurface utility engineers, engineering, SUE, related to utility relocation plans for the upcoming project to improve US Highway 80 from Beltline Road to Lawson Road, and authorizing the town manager to execute the contract in an amount not to exceed $75,478. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Town Engineer Lyle Jenkins.
Okay. Again, thank you. As you know, TxDOT has been moving forward with their design plans to widen US Highway 80 in several sections. The section that is primarily all in Sunnyvale runs from Beltline Road to Lawson Road, and TxDOT is tentatively planning to let this project for bids approximately 1 year from now, November of 2023. The town does have utility facilities in the right-of-way, primarily water, but a little bit of sanitary sewer as well. TxDOT has identified a number of areas where there are potential conflicts that the town would be required to relocate said conflicts prior to construction commencing. We have a contract with KSA we have a proposal from KSA for additional subsurface work to sort of nail down exactly whether these conflicts require to be relocated or whether they need to be, or whether they could potentially be left in place. TxDOT is open to potentially allowing some of these underground lines to remain where they are, but we have to verify that they don't conflict with any of TxDOT's improvements, and the only way to do that is to do additional subsurface investigation to determine the exact depths and locations of these lines. So that is what this contract is for. As you say, the amount is not to exceed $75,478. And that having been said, I'd be happy to take any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Lyle. Any questions for Lyle? Okay, this time I'd like to open the floor to public comment. If you'd like to speak on item number 12, please come forward at this time. With no one coming forward, we'll close the floor to public comments. Council, do you have any questions, comments, or discussions? If there are no further discussions, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve, item 12.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldridge, seconded by Councilmember Finch to approve item number 12. Does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? Item passes 6.
You got me as a yes.
Yes,
You
yes.
looked at me, I thought maybe you were looking at my phone.
Item passes 6-0. Next item. Thank you, Lyle. Next item, item number 13. Discuss, consider, and act upon Resolution 2022-27, a resolution declaring the Trip Road Trail Connection a Type B economic development project and appropriating funding in an amount not to exceed $460,000 in accordance with the Texas Local Government Code Section 505.152 and 501.152. I'd like to turn this over to Economic Development Director Burton Barr. Burton?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. As you all may recall, this item, at the October 24th meeting, you all approved an amendment to the construction manager at risk contract for the Trip Road Trail Connection project. Since then, this went back to 4B on November the 7th. 4B board held a public hearing and recommended to the town council that this be declared a project and the funding not to exceed $460,000. As far as the original information that was presented, I believe it was $430,000. There was a request to add some additional fencing on the eastern boundary of the Glazier property, and that's the change in price from $430 to $460. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Burton. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to public comments. If you would like to speak on item number 13, please come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record, and you're limited to 3 minutes.
Sir, Ben Munyon, 212 Sunray Lane. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you for putting this on the agenda. I tried to find the information for this particular item. I had a little difficulty on the website, but that is on my inability to navigate things sometimes. But my understanding is that this is for trails along Trip Road, bike trail connections. Is that? Yes. I just want to say I'm hugely a fan of that. I bike on the Trip Trail from the Sunray neighborhoods all the time through that Samuel Park. I think it's a great part of the community, and I would love to see bike trails going further along Trip. You know, right now my wife and I have 2 small children. We take them in the bike trailer on the back or whatever, and we have to end at Jobson Road. Yeah, we're hugely in favor of more bike trails and such in the community. So that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further comments? With no one else coming forward, I'll close the floor to public comment. Council, do you have any questions, comments, or discussion?
This will be the greatest trail in all of Sunnyvale. Ever.
I'm just a proponent of the fence.
I think it would be a good spot for a lemonade stand.
Hey, let's do it. I'm okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, can I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldred, seconded by Councilmember Freeman to approve item number 13. Does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? Item passes 6-0. On to item number 14. Discuss, consider, and act upon Resolution 2022-28, setting a public hearing for the establishment of a proposed tax increment reinvestment zone. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to Town Manager Jeff Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'll just provide some introductory comments for both items number 14 and 15 because they are nearly identical. If you recall, in our budget and strategic planning sessions this past June and July, we discussed potential ways to fund needed capital improvements throughout the community. One such way to do that is through tax increment financing, which requires the establishment of a tax increment reinvestment zone. Staff has been working with Petty and Associates for the last couple of months. We do have Kirk McDaniel here, who's in the audience representing the firm, and they have been working with our staff to come up with two proposed tax increment reinvestment zones and identification of all of the potential public projects which would be funded in part or wholly through the use of those zones. So tonight, staff is just recommending that council approve the resolutions establishing a public hearing date of December the 5th, 2022 at 6 p.m. So that would be a special called council meeting for December the 5th. Creation of tax increment reinvestment zones require a public hearing and passage of an ordinance on 2 readings. So we would propose that we would have if the resolutions pass tonight, we would propose to have the public hearing on December the 5th, along with the first reading of both reinvestment zone ordinances, with the second reading for both reinvestment zones, if approved, on the following meeting on December the 12th. So we won't get into the details of the tax increment reinvestment zones at this point in time. That is what the public hearing is for, but generally speaking, under state law, towns and communities of less than 100,000 are entitled by law to put up to 50% of their ad valorem value within a tax increment reinvestment zone. As proposed right now, you have 2 zones. Again, a north zone and a south zone, which is why we're requiring 2 resolutions. And I believe the total amount of taxable values that's being proposed to be included in those zones is about 45% of our overall ad valorem value. Again, Kirk McDaniel with Petty and Associates is here as well if you have any questions. But tonight, the resolutions just simply set the public hearing date for December the 5th on those 2 proposed projects. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to public comments. If you'd like to speak on item number 14, please come forward at this time. With no one coming forward, I'd like to close the floor to public comments. Council, do you have any questions, comments, or discussion for Jeff internally?
I'd just like to say I think this is a great asset to our town for these tours, both north and south.
Any further questions, comments? Jeff, I would like to say thank you for doing all this research, having you and your team do this research, and I'm excited about this development and us and what we can do with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
If there are no further discussions, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldridge, seconded by Councilmember Finch to approve item number 14. Does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item number 15. Discuss, consider, and act upon Resolution 2022-29, setting a public hearing for the establishment of a proposed tax increment reinvestment zone. Can I hand this over to you, Town Manager Jeff Jones, again?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Again, this is the resolution required for the second tax increment reinvestment zone, which again would establish the public hearing date for December the 5th, as well as a proposed first reading ordinance with the second reading ordinance upon approval brought back to council for their consideration on December 12th. I did fail to mention in the last item, this tax increment reinvestment zones have actually been utilized by the town in the past to pay for needed public improvements as part of an economic development incentive. So this is not the first time in the town's history we've used or looked at using this type of financing for public projects. Secondly, I just want to reiterate, this is not creating a new tax. It is not increasing the tax. It is simply capturing the value of our existing tax base into a zone, and the incremental increase in the values or portion thereof would simply go to fund public improvements within those zones. And again, at the public hearing, you'll see a presentation where there's more than $150 million in public projects identified over the next 20 to 30 years of this community. And this would be one funding mechanisms for, again, a portion or wholly funding some of those projects. So again, it's just another resolution setting the public hearing date for December the 5th.
Thank you, Jeff. This time I'd like to open the floor to public comments. If you'd like to speak on item number 15, please come forward at this time. With no one coming forward, I'll close the floor to public comments. Council, do you have any questions, comments, or discussions? If there's no further discussion, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve item 15 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Eldridge to approve item number 15. Does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone have any questions on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We're on to item number 16. Next is the mayor and council's request for future staff updates and agenda items. Does council have any requests for staff? Next, can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to section 551.071 of the local government code, consultation with attorney to accept legal advice related to code compliance?
Make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to section 551.071.
May I get a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Finch to adjourn into executive session pursuant to section 551.071 of the local government code. All in favor signify. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We're moving to executive session. Thank you. Now the time is 8:59 p.m. and I am reconvening the meeting into open session. As a result of the executive session, I can confirm that no action is necessary. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Councilman Freeman and seconded by Councilmember Allen to adjourn the meeting for Monday, November 14th. All in favor, signify. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, everybody.